the New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Guerrilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.
Greetings and welcome along to the New Zealand Tech Podcast. Today I'm here with Gerard Quinn, who is the Director for the UC Centre for Entrepreneurship at University of Canterbury. Welcome, Gerard. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, on a cold morning here in Christchurch, Paul.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. I know at the moment we've got a bit of COVID going around, so thank you. And I know we've pulled you in a little bit at the last minute, but we really appreciate that. Before we start, big thank you to our show partners: 2 Degrees, Vodafone, Spark, HP, Guerrilla Technology, Cyclone, and Aruba. Now, first up, maybe, Gerard, give us a little bit of an introduction on what you do, what your role is, and where you fit into this big, wide world of tech and entrepreneurship.
Well, look, my main background for a long time was in aviation, doing air traffic control, running air traffic control centres, ATC workforce for Australia, airspace deals. But when I came back from Australia in the early 2000s, my first job was to work for 6 of the largest electronic companies in Christchurch. That's the Tate Electronics and the Invensys and Eaton Powerwares, and trying to turn them into a commercial network. Great companies, big employers in the region. So that was my first real introduction into tech. And then I ran economic development agencies. So a big part of economic development is how do we keep business sectors relevant and innovative and growing, and innovation entrepreneurship is a huge part of that. So after a little path through economic development, I ended up here at University of Canterbury. I started about 6 months ago running the Centre for Entrepreneurship, and it's a great, exciting place to be, just seeing young people in particular amaze themselves with what they can do.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. Well, really looking forward to delving in and hearing more about the Centre for Entrepreneurship and your work there during the episode. First up, we're just going to run through some news bites. Now, one of the ones that caught my attention is the UK signing a US border deal that basically will see them sharing biometric data that's held by police about their citizens with US border officials. And I guess this is just the sort of stuff we need to keep a little bit of a watch on, because there's 2 sides to these sorts of things as we work to protect our countries, but also there's a lot of risks that can come in. Another thing that relates to these 2 countries is there was a speech that's just been given by the heads of MI5 and FBI in the UK, and this one really sort of, I guess, caught my attention because they maybe went into a little bit more than what we'll often hear. I think this is a unique circumstance to have these 2 leaders talking publicly, and really quite a lot of information was shared. And one of the comments was just about the concerns about the Chinese Communist Party and the varying challenges from a spying perspective, varying references to cyber threats, and warnings about the stealing of technology using a broad range of tools. One of the comments I'll quote is it said, "Even more serious threat to Western businesses than even many sophisticated business people realized," and went into a range of references of how US and UK companies should be very cautious. And there was one example that was given of a UK company that had did some business with a Chinese firm, and they ultimately ended up 3 years after that deal, basically hitting the wall. Now, I'm not too sure with that particular example, but they did agree to a certain amount of tech transfer. So it looks as though there was actually no espionage involved in this case. But the company Smiths Harlow, which is a UK-based precision engineering firm, entered this deal, and then about 3 years later, they were gone once they had effectively allowed their IP to be taken over by a Chinese firm, Futures Aerospace. But there's you could probably Google this if you're interested, and a lot of that the speech and the content there is online. But there's a fair bit of warning there, and it probably uncovers some things that many of us might not have realised. Often, of course, there's a level of fear around certain nations. But we don't often probably hear from people at this sort of level that would have a viewpoint that is probably backed up by a lot of reality and a lot of data that we wouldn't normally see. Also in news, Microsoft's Azure having some capacity issues, which they're blaming on supply chain. And Microsoft is saying they'll move to restrict trials and internal workloads to prioritize growth of their existing customers. So this is not something that we've seen before. We think of the cloud as something that's infinite and flexible, and we can just draw on as much as we like. Let's hope that doesn't become a longer term issue. And locally here, we've had the announcement that the Southern Cross Next cable has launched, and that I think is pretty exciting for New Zealand to know that we've got this extra link to the outside world from a resiliency and a capacity perspective. And so there's some pretty interesting numbers there in terms of what they're delivering. They're testing a 400 GBE services across this network, which runs for just under 16,000 kilometers. So offering these services between countries is pretty pleasing, and I guess it also keeps up the competition. Of course, as a country, we've really benefited from there being more diversity and more connections to the outside world, which is why it's normal for business and consumer connections largely to be available with uncapped data options, which certainly wasn't the case going back a decade or so. And other news, Twitter say they're off to hire lawyers so they can go after Elon Musk after he's pulled out of the deal to buy Twitter. Now into sort of the discussion topics. Gerard, you've been following NASA's Capstone mission, which of course Rocket Lab have been absolutely pivotal in this mission. And they're part of it with launching from Mahia Peninsula here in New Zealand seemed to go flawlessly, and it was kind of fun watching the live stream and seeing the celebrations at Rocket Lab mission control. Could we have expected this to happen when Rocket Lab sort of first started in business? Could anyone have imagined this?
Yeah, look, having had a long career in aviation, this is the item for numerous space puns, but I'll do my best to avoid them. Look, this is the place of movies, isn't it? Really, this is space. It's real. Congratulations to Rocket Lab on just a great achievement. Having the credibility to be chosen to be part of this NASA partner mission. It wasn't just NASA; they had other important partners in it as well. But it's just more than just successfully launching a rocket. This is about different and new ways of actually traveling beyond the moon and opening up all that possibility. I think if you look at what Rocket Lab has done for Mahia Peninsula, I did work in Hawke's Bay. It was just an amazing place, and for engineering, manufacturing, production in Auckland. But it's actually becoming a whole New Zealand thing. I was at a aerospace dinner in Christchurch last Wednesday with Minister Megan Woods. Mark Rocket was there, so of course aerospace would come up. But it was just amazing how fast the sector's growing. We had companies from Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, Piper Vision, Kia Aerospace, Asterix, Dawn Aerospace, Swoop. These are around New Zealand, each taking a niche in part of this aerospace industry. We had Linda there from Tawhaki, which is the new space area out at Lake Ellesmere, Kaiteriti Spit. And that's an amazing project because you are regenerating a natural environment, a partnership between Crown and Tūrunaka, but at the same time, you're developing aerospace activities and R&D facilities, and you're going to get jobs and investment out of it. So thought that was amazing. It's particularly relevant, I think, to UC because there are a lot of things that come out of the engineering school in particular. But maybe later on we can talk about the fact that it's not just rockets and fuel. There are so many other things that are now using space to advance, for the betterment of mankind.
Yeah, look, I think it's just a mind-blowing achievement that has happened here. They're not quite the mission isn't at a completion point just yet. That takes some time, but some real innovation in terms of being able to get this satellite heading up and getting to the moon using a small rocket. And I think they're talking it's about a 25 kilo payload ultimately going up into orbit
but also
to the
cost, being able to do it for the cost they can do it at compared to the days of Saturn V's, and it means that you can do so many more things and make it accessible. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, I think these sort of you think of a mission to the moon and a multi-billion-dollar type of thing would be. I mean, I guess there isn't a norm for getting to the moon because it's been done
Not yet.
so few times. But to see this mission being done for in the low tens of millions of US dollars, I think Rocket Lab's involvement was maybe 10 million USD, and the entire mission was certainly under 50 million New Zealand dollars from what I've seen. So on that scale, it's kind of a little bit hard to get your head around that this could be achieved for such a small figure.
But also the design of CubeSats and microsats, it provides access to a whole different range of industries from through health to undertake experiments in microgravity or zero gravity that would never have been able to be done before. So the equity of accessibility is just increasing as we bring the price down.
Yeah. And also this mission, we've seen, I think some of the benefits of the work that Rocket Lab have been doing on that from a vertical integration perspective, that they're not just the launch vehicle, but they're really involved across the board with a whole range of technology pieces that join together, and that's also enabling them to win other business because they're able to provide an end-to-end solution for their customers. So it just creates more exciting jobs here in New Zealand and will help the overall sector. So yeah, really pleased.
And there may be possibilities in the future for assembly, where that's actually done offshore or not, and of course where we launch from is all up for grabs as the industry develops as well.
Yeah, definitely. Now onto another, I guess, international but Kiwi story. Two companies, Qual IT and their partner entity, Sequa, is it SEQA? And they do quality assurance work and software development, apps and cyber security of software development are being bought by Planet out of Australia, which is part of the Japanese financial services group Nomura. This one's quite interesting because they've really grown to quite a size, and we often have these businesses that we don't even necessarily notice what they're up to and how innovative our Kiwi firms are, often on a global scale. Until somebody comes along and acquires them, and a lot of money changes hands. What's your thoughts on this one, Gerard?
Look, I think one point you brought up there about the amount of innovation and things. Yes, we are hugely innovative. Sometimes it's not necessarily a new physical product or something, but it could be a service. I remember hearing one of the leads for Xero many years ago saying they haven't changed the laws of mathematics. They haven't changed the laws of accounting. What they've done is make it easy for people to fill in their invoicing and tax returns. So you can actually take something that's really a process can be a technology. So we have all of those things happening because I think generally we're a very practical nation and we go out and solve practical problems. And I must admit, I don't know too much about the Qual IT one, but when you hear about these, you often, sometimes quite a harsh reaction to local companies being sold offshores. But when you think about it, the owners have built a great company. It's attractive enough to be bought. They deserve the rewards for doing it. And we all know serial Kiwi founders who have used the proceeds from the sale of their first company to start new businesses and start the cycle all over again. So promise of hundreds of more jobs, has to be good for building the scale of the IT sector around the country. And I think now the challenge will be to find those skilled people.
Yeah, look, I think really, really exciting. Already a base of 250 staff across their New Zealand operations, and the idea that could double or triple is pretty pleasing. As you say, some challenges possibly ahead in finding those people, and certainly we hope that those issues don't persist too long in terms of finding the right resource and being able to bring more of the right sort of people into New Zealand going forward, because we don't always have everybody, but of course that's part of the role for the University of Canterbury, isn't it? It's training up more people and putting more people into the market. So really,
and we
really
do a lot of
role.
work integrated learning from all our faculties. We try and put people in two companies before they're finished doing their degrees, so that they actually also know what it's like to work in a company, because you can have the greatest engine, but if your transmission is sloppy, you're not going to get the results you want. So we also spend quite a bit of effort trying to get people work ready and able to actually get into a company, know what it's like, produce the results.
Yeah, that's great. Now, on a more of a global basis, it was kind of shocking, but not the first time we've heard of these sorts of things happening. Although when they happen in China, it tends to be on a large scale. And so this was a stolen Chinese database that's been for sale online, and apparently containing about a billion records. And so this is the Shanghai National Police database that was leaked, the the sort of numbers that the media reports indicates, it suggests that names, home addresses, ID numbers, phone numbers, criminal records, and other data on around 1 billion Chinese nationals. So a pretty extreme level of data leakage there, and I can only imagine what must be going on in this scenario, for those whose role was to protect the data. But having talked earlier about the storing of biometric data and sharing of that between countries, never a good thing to hear these stories. I guess there's probably a whole lot of other aspects that come in here. There's been a lot of coverage of sort of spinning it round a little bit, because I guess this is data that's available anywhere in the world. But we've had TikTok coming in and starting to get more attention again for the data that they hold, and how securely that might be held, and whether Chinese government have access to that stuff. So I mean, it seems like privacy is a pretty hard thing overall these days, doesn't it?
It is, and it's look, it seems that the authenticity of that data for the Shanghai leak has been confirmed. I thought that the 10 Bitcoin, or about $200,000, I think it was a relatively small amount for the amount of data stolen. I think the business school pricing department will be talking to people about pricing for things like that. I mean, that's a huge amount of data. Not encouraging it at all, but I thought, that's actually going after a very small reward for a really awful intrusion into people's lives and data. It's a problem of our times. It's that thing that we do want data. It helps us on a global scale solve world problems. So it helps us on a business scale to our individual businesses for our livelihoods. But this sort of thing is going to be an ongoing fight. With successive rounds won by the hackers, and then another round won by the security experts. So it's going to be with us for a long, long time.
You a bit there. Let's see. Right. Me all right?
You're back now.
Okay, sorry, what happened there to our connection? Do you want to just sort of step back on that one again, Gerard? Step back a step or two.
I just think it's a sign of our times. It's with us. We need data because it solves problems from a business level through to a global level. We need to be able to swap data. Whenever you've got a pipeline of data, it's prone to attack. But it will be an ongoing fight, and we're going to have successive rounds won by the hackers and by the security experts. So it is a problem of our times, and it's not going to go away very soon.
Yeah, I think you're right. Just the scale of this one, I guess, it's what blows my mind the most, and it's just a really good. Well, it's certainly a reminder that's of enough scale that we still have a lot of work to do on this front. And I guess some countries, some governments do a better job than others, and it's very interesting after hearing about this talk by MI5 and FBI. Talking around the level of offensive action that's being taken from China, that maybe they do struggle a little bit on the defensive side themselves. So quite a shock, that one. Now, in terms of other news, Starlink have launched their option, so satellite connectivity for boats. And reading some of the background on this, I think a few folks were maybe a bit shocked to hear that Starlink, that we can order for our home locations, particularly of interest to those in rural areas that maybe don't have ideal access to local networks, and these can be purchased. Certainly, when I purchased mine, I think it was a bit under $1,000 for a satellite dish, and then your connection, your first monthly fee, which was coming in around $150 a month. I think that's up to about $180 a month now. But if you want it on your boat, then they're talking USD 5,000 per month and a USD $10,000 hardware purchase. But delving a little bit deeper, it does seem like those that are fronting up with this money and committing to this subscription are certainly getting something that's got a few variances in terms of the service. So there's dual dishes, and no doubt a fair bit of R&D that SpaceX are still having to cover, and it's these sort of commercial opportunities that will, to some degree, you could say, will subsidise those everyday connections for folks. And I saw somewhere a reference to the previous connection that SpaceX had actually had on one of their vessels for rocket landings, that they were spending US $150,000 a month for a satellite-based internet connection to reach them out there. And being older technology, it was, of course, somewhat inferior to the Starlink connection. So certainly, if you're currently spending $150,000 a month for an internet connection, and Starlink's available, I can imagine a lot of people wanting to augment that existing connection with a Starlink, because it's probably better and faster in some ways. But it is still new tech, and from what we can see, it actually doesn't have full global coverage. What are your thoughts here?
Well, I think it's probably what you've pointed out there, that it is a new tech. If you go back a few years and think what it would cost to buy a satellite phone or a minute of time on a satellite phone, imagine the cost then and how horrific you thought that was. And it is a new industry. So I think, as most of the tech entrepreneurs out there in your audience would understand, how do you generate sales with enough money to fix the problems that you've really got still anyway, and then develop the new product offerings. So it's really, I think, more of a business model discussion. Do you start with a bit of price skimming that, maybe you assume that if you've got a boat, then you can also afford to pay more for your next connection. So yeah, I think it's more of a business model thing for, and the early adopters are picking it up. And if you do that, you have to be prepared to pay more.
Yeah, look, I mean, I can imagine there's a few folks with their super yachts that will have streaming and other things that they probably haven't necessarily had before these connections are available, or certainly a much better overall connection. So there's certainly a bunch of customers that these figures won't be any sort of challenge for. But the average Kiwi attaching one of or a pair of these to their fishing kayak, probably not so much. But,
and look, again, it will open up things eventually that, when we come these two-way data exchange sources, we'll find ways that aren't in the phone call and entertainment aspect. It'll be a great platform that we can use for all the other data transmissions and things we need around climate monitoring and other things from locations around the world, not just fixed stations. So it's early stages.
Yeah, it is. Now there was a map, a sort of coverage map on the Starlink site that shows not global coverage. When I tried a couple of days ago to see if I could just to find the details and for ordering one of these for New Zealand, basically came up and said not available right now, even though we're well within the coverage. So that may well have changed now. If you're desperate to get one of these, if it hasn't, then I can imagine some people might be trying to have one of these shipped to the US. But look, it is quite a big deal. And in fact, I was looking at upcoming road trip and looking at where we've still got some black spots in terms of mobile coverage and challenges with EV charging and so on, and the west coast of the South Island. I was looking at that and thinking, oh, should I be throwing a Starlink in the boot? Do I need some internet connection in those places where you can't get cell phone coverage, or should I be looking to rent a sat phone, or do you use an EPIRB? We're just getting more and more options available to us, aren't we, for remote parts of the world that in the past we just you would have no expectation of any connectivity at all. Yet, more and more these things are getting better and better.
You could pop one in your boat and tow it on your South Island holiday.
There you go.
But it's not just the West Coast. Your State Highway 1 between Christchurch and Dunedin has black spots for mobile coverage. And the weather can get cold down there in the middle of the South Island. So really is something that's would be great to have a better coverage along those, especially the highways.
Yeah. Now, one just last thing to cover before we sort of delve in and hear a bit about the UC Centre for Entrepreneurship. In quite an unusual turn of events, a Dutch university has ended up profiting somewhat from a ransomware situation because law enforcement were basically able to recover the funds that they had transmitted to pay for in a ransomware attack, and they paid out the ransom in Bitcoin, something around 200,000 euros. But the story goes that between the time that this happened in 2019 and when the funds were returning, Bitcoin, of course, had moved, and we all know it's been fairly volatile, and especially lately. Apparently that 200,000 euros turning into about 500,000 euros. Now, who knows what that'll be tomorrow, whether it'll be less or more, but seems to be on a downward trajectory at the moment. But unusual to have a silver lining when it comes to cyber incident, and especially when it comes to ransomware.
Well, seems to be a bit like the property market, really, isn't it? Timing is everything, and sometimes it goes in your favour. I would have just thought it would be such a hard decision to make if you were faced with a ransomware situation. Do you pay up and further encourage such attacks, or do you lose valuable data? And from what I know of this case, it was sort of luckily it was research data and anonymized, really, rather than that full private information. I wouldn't like to have to make that decision about whether to pay or not. What surprised me a little bit about that situation, I suppose, that there was a mention in the article that ransom recoveries are actually not that unusual. I would have thought once it's gone, it's gone. But there was a report of US authorities recovering some of the payment that Colonial Pipeline had done, and they had ransomware. They were fuel suppliers' computers, so it was couldn't actually go through an ability to get fuel for consumers. And I think something else that came out when they were discussing that article was that ransomware cryptocurrencies probably aren't as anonymous as some people suggest or think. So there's a question there about if you could recover it, how did they track cryptocurrency? What didn't surprise me so much was the line in the article that the ransomware underground suffered from a shocking lack of honour among thieves. So maybe it was an insider job to get the money back.
Yeah, fascinating. Oh well, that's been really interesting to chat through those topics. But let's hear about the Centre for Entrepreneurship
Wow.
at the University of Canterbury. That's what's keeping you busy every day, and I'm keen to know a little bit more about what you do. What are the things that you're involved in there, Gerard?
Okay. Look, I'll call it UCE because University of Canterbury Centre for Entrepreneurship is quite a mouthful. But so we're all about increasing that entrepreneurial spirit and capability and impact both within the university and beyond. So that means we've got a double mandate. The graduate profile of the university says that its students have to be innovative and entrepreneurial. That's what they need to be to either be good employees in businesses or to start their own businesses themselves. So we've got that focus in there, but the university's mission also is about delivering people who are engaged, empowered, and making a difference. So for UCE, that means we've got to look beyond the university boundaries and increase that economic impact of the university on the city and region, and then progressively nationally and to the world. So we're aligned to the business school, which is great for accessing abundant research and sharp minds. Like how we go about fulfilling that mandate is that we help people generate ideas and turn them into ventures which grow and make impact. And I call them ventures because a lot of young people are values driven. They want to make a difference to the world about something they care about. And all concepts, whether it's just aimed at delivering social, cultural, environmental, or commercial impact, they need ongoing funding stream to ensure that their impact's significant and long-lasting. So we're always helping these founders develop minimum viable companies or some other entity structure, as well as minimum viable products, because then they grow and they remain relevant in a pretty dynamic world. So we've got a range of programs, covers all the way from ideation, like how do you come up with an idea, through pre-acceleration, incubation, acceleration. As I mentioned before, it's just amazing seeing students and staff just amaze themselves as well as everyone else with the ideas that they come up with for new products and services. Our Think Lab program is aligned with universities in Adelaide, Singapore and France. And that's really a more bespoke service where we've got very battle-scarred industry leaders who are advising clients on their commercialization and growth strategy. We've built a very deep expertise in the 4 supernodes of the priority sectors that our local economic development agency, Christchurch NZ, is focusing on as being the ones that can really push along our regional economy. And those supernodes are aerospace and future transport. And I mean, just look how much we've talked today about aerospace things has been a new frontier. Food, fibre and agritech, health tech and resilient communities, and high-tech services. So that's like what we're here to do. We're here to make impact. My job at the moment is, how do we take this huge asset, this university asset, and how do we sweat it a bit and actually make a difference outside the boundaries? So happy to talk about some of the programs if you're interested. Or
Yeah, that would be fascinating. I mean, I have great memories of Canterbury University. My father worked there for many years, and I would come onto the campus for all manner of technology related things. So I can remember playing Pac-Man on the university campus, probably in a space that was for university students while I was at school, getting access to the latest in printing technology. And so I would do my school assignments, and I would turn up at the university with $1, and they would give me a laser printout of my assignment, which would astound my high school teachers in the 80s, because most people hadn't seen anything off a laser printer before. And so, and of course, my dad's work was, working with computers in his case in the math department. So I know that there's always a lot that goes on campus there. But yeah, it would be fascinating to know a little bit about some of the programs. What are the things that might catch people's interest, or if these are things that people maybe want to get involved in.
Yeah, look, I can probably go back a bit further than you, Paul. I can remember going to a pub and thinking that Space Invaders was high tech, and all you could do was move a lever and tap a button, and I thought that was really high tech. But we start right at that student end again, so we support and coach the business clubs on campus. We've got a lot of clubs like Investment Society, the Entrepreneurs Club with competitions, through to Global China Connection and Malaysian Club. Now there's over 1,000 students there who are interested in starting businesses. We run the engagement program for the business school. So we connect industry to all that knowledge, skills, talent, research, and resources of UC. And we work beyond the business school around the other faculties to bring them to bear for industry partners. We've start off, I suppose, at that ideation stage, and we run a hatchery, which is all about experimenting about, do I want to be an entrepreneur? What's it like? What does it mean? And encouraging groups, Māori, Pacifica women who sometimes don't even see themselves as being entrepreneurs, and giving them a place to experiment with it. We've got about 4,800 students who don't identify as either Pākehā, Māori or Pacifica, from all these different backgrounds, and they've got a different worldview. They see different problems, they come up with different solutions. So we're trying to encourage all that sort of diversity and innovation. Out of our, probably the flagship for that is our summer startup program, 12 weeks over summer, December through to February. We do pre-work with them to actually start getting them into the habit, and then this is an intensive 12 weeks. We're really grateful that there's a US benefactor who pays for scholarships for the students. Otherwise, they'd be out there trying to have a job to pay for the next year's living expenses.
That's great.
And then we end up, after 12 weeks, we get these ideas and we take them to the piano in the middle of Christchurch. We might have an audience of 400 people, and they have to present this concept. And that's a big ask. So not only does it address the idea of the venture, but it also grows their capability in believing in themselves and presenting an idea. This year's going to be our 10th edition of the Summer Startup. So we're going to try and make it a real celebration of the achievements of some of the people who've been through it in the last 10 years. And some of those companies, I'll run them down them in a minute, have actually turned into very large companies, employing a lot of people and raising a lot of capital. We do other things then, like we run health disrupt challenges coming up at the end of July, and these are 48-hour compressed sessions. Industry poses some industry problems, statements, and we just get people to think about how could we address these problems. And that's feedstock for putting into later programs and actually developing an idea into a concept, into a venture. We've just finished the Food, Fibre and Agritech Challenge, second time we've run this, and that was powered by UCE. We used B-Link from Lincoln University, funded by the Canterbury Mayoral Forum, Christchurch NZ, and we used our Think Lab program there around, again, these problem statements by a huge industry of importance to New Zealand. And we had two streams, venture founders, classic entrepreneurs, and researchers, because what we're trying to do is pull the ideas of research into something you turn into something that makes a difference. The winner this year was Super Pro, was makers of a highly soluble nutritional pea protein that becomes components into a whole new range of plant-based foods. So, when we think of agriculture here, we have to look at the challenges that are coming up, environmental, considerations that have to be factored into your production, meat substitutions, plant-based food and nutrition. So that's just finished. That was fantastic. We ran it the second time this year. We get so many types of ideas because tech is such a broad term. We've had, if you took a typical tech company, I talk about Vext, It was started by Luke Campbell and Lucy Turner in our summer startup program, and it's replacing traditional phone systems with smart calling and voicemail platforms, really targeted at professional services like lawyers, recruiters. It's got over 10,000 platform users in the US, Canada, Australia, United Kingdom. Won KiwiNet's commercialization prize for students. We've got now 21 staff, 3 successful capital raises. These are young people in their early 20s, just amazing.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Have a look at Kia Aerospace. While we're on aerospace, that's Mark Rocket's latest space venture in association with Philip Saltrop. He came up, UC PhD. They're building a solar-powered, remotely piloted stratospheric aircraft to fly continuously for months to collect all this aerial imagery and data that fills data gaps and makes intelligence more accessible. But aerospace is not all about rockets and fuel. We've got Sarah Kessins from UC conducting protein crystallography and crystallization in zero gravity, because that's actually a health research project. We've had Kiwi Fibre still with us. They produce high tensile strength material from harakiki fibre. So you're using more natural products. Agritech by Brian West, revolutionising waste in the cosmetics industry. So again, commercial businesses, but also very values driven. Canterbury won Calhan Innovations C Prize, and we've covered a prize. And unlike most recycled metals, there's something about zinc, which I'm not a scientist, I don't understand, but it's got a larger CO2 footprint when you recycle it than when it's mined. But it's a huge byproduct of a lot of manufacturing. So they're building an alternative to the current way in which we recycle zinc and zinc dust. So that's been through UCE's ThinkLab program to help it develop its commercialization strategy. So we're getting very broad definition of tech, but in the end, it's all about making a difference.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, so who else would you expect to be sort of highlighting and putting up in lights, for this next or this sort of, I guess, 10-year anniversary of your summer startups program? Any other ones you can mention?
Yeah, look, I mean, sometimes I'm trying to show examples, but these companies are great. Every other company and venture is great too. So I'm like, you get a bit feel better sometimes about highlighting others when there are so many other good ones around, and some of them are will make huge impact. It may not be the biggest commercial earner, but we had two Maori ladies start a business last year about increasing the connection between expectant mothers and their unborn child using tikanga and of Maori. Now, if that can make a difference to people's health, well-being in life, connections, the sense of connectedness in families, what a fantastic outcome for a venture.
Yes, definitely.
And there are so many environmental ventures coming through. We've had another one, Bambax, that recently won a prize in the Food Fibre Agritech Challenge, about dealing with waste through recyclable materials and packaging. So look, they just go on and on and on, and I'd suggest then that the way to do it, Paul, is you and all your listeners come to our 10th anniversary in probably in the piano, or maybe even a bigger venue in February next year, and go down the list.
Sounds good. Sounds very good. We'll certainly look forward to hearing more about that, and getting down to see you in person. I was hoping to be down this week, but plans had changed there. And tell us about who else you've got on the team. We were originally going to have Michelle Polglaze joining us on this episode, so she's part of your team. What who are the different people, and how does it fit together?
Hey, thank you for the opportunity to give a shout out to the team. Yes, Michelle is looking after predominantly our ThinkLab program at the moment, getting these advisors onto the companies about commercialization and growth strategy. She had also done some services for Creative HQ in Wellington, running a fintech accelerator. And for my sins, I was chair of Creative HQ a while back, and that's been an exciting organisation because it got into new areas of innovation, corporate innovation, government innovation. Yes, it's not an oxymoron; it's a thing that happens, and that innovation is everywhere. Good ideas are everywhere, but it's how you take it into something that turns it into reality. And Michelle's she's getting her pilot license at the moment, so very interested in aerospace. And a great connector, great worker. We have Lisa Martin, who is French. She has worked in entrepreneurship centres in France and Cambodia, a lot of experience. Currently focusing on the student capability building side, but moving now into more of the acceleration for, well, what happens when they've finished at UC? How do we support them to get to the next stage before they're ready for a Think Lab program? Tim Winfield runs our engagement program, and we can't do our things without being connected to industry, because that's where the expertise is out there. We work very closely with the Canterbury Tech Association, Canterbury Angels, and other investment groups that come in. We've got James Carr working for us at the moment while he's doing his PhD, and he's running the Health Challenge. We've got Mary Cunningham, who coaches the clubs to just produce that capability in pipeline. And we also have interns. Will Murrell runs the makerspace. So we have a makerspace with a large number of 3D printers and vinyl cutters, so people can actually experiment with physical product design and prototyping. We have new interns, Sophie and Daniel, who are actually helping us with our social media and getting all our information out to people. So that's about our team. It's a small team, but they're really committed, and they really want to make a difference, and they do.
You've got a lot going on there. That's it's really exciting, and I'm glad that we took the a bit of time to hear about what you're up to there, and I hope we'll get a bit more of an opportunity in the future, and hopefully I can pop out and see you in person next time I'm down in Canterbury. Well, that's great. Now, where should people go just to find out a little bit more about the programs and the things that you're up to there?
Look, I think the easiest way is to go to the University of Canterbury website, and search for Centre for Entrepreneurship. We'll come up straight away. We do run Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn channels as well, so you can search on all of those things for us. But come to the website, gives you our contacts. We'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, great. All right. Well, thanks very much for joining us. Thank you to our show partners for their support of New Zealand's technology and innovation ecosystems. So thank you to Vodafone, Spark, 2 Degrees, HP, Gorilla Technology, Cyclone, and Aruba. And we will be back again with another episode next week. So we'll look forward to catching everybody then. And thanks again, Gerard, and thanks again for everybody for listening in. Cheers.
Thanks, Paul.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.